All right, chat. Now, I wanted to make this tier list for a while. This is a list of all the heroes in the game ranked by how good they are as a secondary character to Sombra. Who you would duo with. This spot right here is where the least amount of characters are going to go. The bottom 3. Because there's a surprising amount of characters that are good. How you choose? Oh, true. Hold up, chat. Hold up. Pay attention. Pay attention, chat. This is why I made it. Guys, pay attention. This is very important stuff, all right? If you want to learn how to play Sombra, you're going to need to learn, okay? This is very imperative information. All right? Stay focused. Come on. Eyes over here. Eyes over here. Eyes over here. Thank you. The reason why I want to do the tier list in the first place, because I want to point out that Genji, it sucks with Sombra. Terrible. All right? Terrible pick with Sombra, okay? Sombra's weaknesses include shield break. She doesn't do that. In her neutral, she doesn't have any burst damage. There's no consistent source of value. Now, if that sounds anything like Genji, you're right. That's exactly like Genji. They share that aspect. Both of them suck in the same aspect. And they're good in the same aspect, but the bad aspect is doubled. Now, that's the worst character to duo with. My favorite character to duo with, it's gotta be Ball. Number 1. Number 1 Ball. We're gonna go bam, boom. This is in absolutely no order that I select them, but Ball, number 1. All right, Ball is the one tank in the game that doesn't always need to commit to their dive. D.va, cooldown for 5 seconds. Winston, Bubbles, cooldown for like 6 seconds. Ball doesn't have that. Ball can slam and immediately go out if necessary. Sombra doesn't always commit. Ball doesn't always commit. That together means you can constantly dive attempt. You can constantly over and over and over and over attempt to dive. That's why it's number 1. You know what? Let's give all the categories 1 before we start going everywhere. Let's see. An opportunity maker, that would be Ana. There we go. There is Ana. Ana is an opportunity maker. If Ana backline nades, throws an aggressive nade, you can take that opportunity. But you're not going to rely on it 24/7. It's a good combo. If something good happens because of Ana, you can take advantage of that. But the neutral game is neutral. Up next, Indifferent. Indifferent would be, you're not diving together, but you're not restricting each other either. So in that way, I'd put Hanzo there. Because Hanzo, you just bam, bam, boom, right? You do your thing. You hit your shots or you don't. Either way, Hanzo still has a lot of burst damage, a lot of shield break. Very daijobu. Scary but doable, I put Ashe. Ashe is she has potential to, you know, dynamite the backline, all that stuff. But her neutral game, like shield break and all that stuff, you kind of tend to avoid, but she can do it. It's possible if you're both good. But that doesn't go for either unstoppable or terrible. Because this is going to be a hot topic here. Tracer. Tracer, I'd put right here for 100%. This is the poster child of either unstoppable or terrible. In pro play as Sombra, with Sombra, you go for who you need to go for in pro play. But in competitive, as Sombra, you go for who you can go for. And that's the big difference. In pro play, you can rely on both of you doubling down so you can snap them, right? So either you're completely unstoppable in pro play, or you just lose the game. So either I'd put Tracer in Scrumptious gameplay, or I'd put it in free loss. But no in between. It entirely depends on what category of skill you're playing in. So if you watching the video, most likely, you know, statistically speaking, pay attention, pay attention, you will not like playing with a Tracer. You see pro players play it, you see pro players try it, but you pay attention, you are probably not going to succeed, because even I don't, and we all know I'm the best gamer in the world. Now that we have all our benchmarks here, I'm just going to go on the list from left to right. So now we have Kiriko. I'd go for Scrumptious gameplay. You can really double down on EMPs and stuff, and cleanse right after. That's good. It's a little bit though. It's a little bit alright. I think Kiriko's gonna be all the way on the right side of S tier by the end of it. Kiriko has cleanse. If she can immediately peel for you after you go in too far, too deep, that's where Kiriko's phenomenal. What are the emojis at the top? I don't know. That came with the website for free. Yeah, I mean, if you're really working together, you can make some phenomenal gameplay happen. But otherwise, I'd put it in Opportunity Maker. But like, for the sake of the tier list, I'll put it up top. Right next to Winston. Winston, same reason as Ball, but it's just less often. When you dive, Winston always commits because he also has more things to commit with. So Ball is more consistent, but Winston doubles down harder. And that way, they're both in S tier. So now we have Widowmaker. Now, Widowmaker is same thing as either unstoppable or terrible. The reason for that is Widow, either you hit a shot or you don't. And there is literally nothing in between for Widowmaker. If your Widowmaker picks off a DPS character, and that makes space for the Sombra to dive the support hero, that could make it unstoppable. It depends on who the Widow is shooting. But most of the time, I'd say it's terrible. So that's why it's on the right side of here. But it's better than Genji, because Widowmaker can still get picks off and make space that way. Mei, I'd put Opportunity Maker because of the wall. And Mei also counters Ball harder. And the Mei wall creates a scenario in which you have more time to follow up on something. And in that way, that natural synergy, whenever you have a wall up and everybody blasts whoever she walled off, that gives more time for Sombra to do stuff. Because Sombra's numbers are high, the problem is that her numbers are too consistent. There's no burst damage. So if you just give Sombra a little bit more time to help out, Sombra can do more than, say, a Tracer. In that way, Mei is a really good opportunity maker. Sombra does do damage. And if not, that's a free hack. No one can interrupt you if there's a wall. No one can do anything, right? Sorry, I lost focus. Oh, no, it's okay. Here we go. So next, we have Ramattra. Sombra makes every long-range interaction close range because he can walk up to him. But Ramattra can just, like, bucket. You can right to it. Put it at a high A tier in that way. Aside the EMP, you don't really 3-2-1 anything. If you hack someone, Ramatra's gonna be like, oh, okay. Because, you know, punch goes through shield anyway. So I think I'd put it at high opportunity maker. Next, Echo. Best, in my opinion, Echo is the best DPS to duo with as a Sombra. Because Echo counters every hero that counters Sombra. So, Torbjorn, Echo can break the turret. Hanzo, Echo, and other way around, vice versa. You know, Cassidy, you can dodge the nade and then immediately go back. Because you can dodge a nade and then keep going. Up next, we have Torb, and I'd say indifferent. Because he has no combo, but he's very consistent. Torbjorn and Genji would be a really good combo because, you know, they fill each other's gaps. But Torbjorn doesn't have any engagement moment. He doesn't like, oh, I'm gonna 3-2-1 now. He fills in the gaps that Sombra has, but he doesn't amplify anything that Sombra does. I'd say indifferent. They fill what? Hey, focus. Up next, Moira. I'd say Moira, either unstoppable or terrible. It depends on what kind of Moira you have. A TikTok Moira can double down harder than any other support in the game, meaning that way it has really good synergy. And long distance healing, also really good with Moira. The beam through the enemy team, if you're EMPing, can immediately peel for you and heal you up. But if the Moira is a heal bot, the Moira is going to be all the way in your own backline. And Moira would not help you with anything. Because Moira is all numbers and no utility. She only has high healing numbers, high damage numbers, and nothing else. No cleanse, no immortality field, none of that. Roadhog, scary but doable. Roadhog gets a lot of attention and eyeballs from the enemy team. They use all their abilities on the Roadhog, meaning they're not going to use it on you. You EMP, and Roadhog hooks someone through that EMP, that's a free pick right there. Roadhog is his own enclosed ecosystem. It's not completely lost, but you do go, oh god, we have a Roadhog. Up next, Pharah. Pharah is going to be on the lower part of Opportunity Maker. It depends on if there's a Mercy or not. Because Pharah has a lot of burst, a lot of spam. But, you know, you really have to make sure that she has her cooldowns when you want to engage on something. Usually, Pharah is, like, playing on her own on the side, meaning your team doesn't have any DPS. If Pharah is a Pharmacy, she's gonna take the Mercy with her, meaning your entire team is already down 2, and then you're gonna also be in the enemy team's backline, meaning there's only gonna be 1 support and 1 tank as your entire front line, which is, stinky, but Pharah is really good with Sombra because Pharah is countered by actual, like, utility abilities, and EMP takes that bye-bye, right? Gone. So if you hack a D.Va and then the Pharah barrages, free team wipe right then and there. So that would be really strong. That's why she's on the lower part of Opportunity Maker, because it's still scary for the rest of the team. But you and Pharah as a Sombra would be really good. Bap, indifferent. Usually, if you're on Sombra and you have a Bap, the Bap is probably going to sit in the backline with your other DPS and support, meaning they're going to be amplified, and you get to be in the front line knowing that your backline is going to be safe. Because your Bap is there. And that shift does an enormous amount of healing, an obnoxious amount of healing. If you're not there, and when they're diving, you can immediately take away from whoever's going to be in the enemy team's backline trying to help out their team diving your team. And that would help you, that would give you a net positive in that way. Now, Orisa is entirely dependent on map, but definitely opportunity maker next to Ramattra. Orisa doesn't, like, the combo exists with the ultimate, but it's not, like, something you want to prep for. Usually, Orisa's ultimate is kind of something you, like, see. You know, the stars align, you're like, I gotta go, you gotta go get it. But for Sombra, you know, you just kind of, you passively make opportunities for the Orisa instead of the other way around. Junkrat, scary but doable. Same reasons, and Junkrat can get hard countered. Same reasons as Pharah, without the fact that Pharah can be more independent. The reason why a Pharah x Sombra would work gets taken away, and then what's left is just the bulk damage. So the bulk damage would work, you know, burning down Reinhardt shield, shooting whoever's pushing up, and the trap, that's good. But it's not better than Pharah, and it's definitely not better than Torbjorn Hanzo. It is high risk, high reward. It's kind of, oh no, we have a Junkrat, but you can make it work. Up next, Lucio, easy S tier. easy S tier. Lucio, speed, boom. Self-explanatory. Speed, phenomenal. Entire team gets to be in sync with a Sombra that way. If everyone's in the speed aura, that means everyone's together and everyone is doing the same strategy. Phenomenal S tier. Mwah, would cook again. Up next, Sojourn. Lower end of the S tier, I'd say. For the simple reason that Sojourn doesn't have that much spam damage, but if you use your ultimate, she can engage just as fast as any other hero in the team here. That's why. The slide is the reason Sojourn is good with Sombra. Junkerqueen, higher end of indifferent, I'd say. I don't really react when I see a Junkerqueen. I'm like, all right, I can make it work. Yeah, no, there's no set reason for Junkerqueen herself. Honestly, kind of the same reason as Roadhog, but her ultimate is way more mobile, so you can still combo. Oh, Zarya. Zarya's definitely up here. Zarya's all about the snowball. You give her charge, she goes in, she keeps going in, she never stops going in. Sombra's main reason for being good in comp, not sure about pro play, in comp is that you can get a pick off, have advantage, and then use that advantage to get the advantage in the next fight, and the next fight, and the next fight. And that same way of playing is exactly applied to Zarya. If you get one pick off, you get your charge. If you have your charge, you have an advantage, and if you have an advantage, you can win the next fight easier. And that same logic applies to Sombra, so Sombra and Zarya together, very good. That's why Zarya is over here, but I wouldn't say higher, because you do still have to, like, there's homework to be done before a fight. You gotta prep for it. You gotta be in the mind of a Zarya for that to work. You can't just, like, bam, boom, boom, pow. You can't just really do that. Up next, we have Sigma. Honestly, same logic as Bat, you know, in the sense of that it makes the rest of the team stronger, so you don't have to worry about it. Possibly, there's way more combos. Sigma has way more pressure. There's a stun involved. His orbs do way more damage. So there's an overall higher number field that compensates for Sombra's lack of numbers. You know, there's no natural gameplay that kind of combos together. So you really, you know, Sigma does their thing, you do your thing, and that coincidentally works out for the both of you. Zen is up here, but that's only because he's really good right now. His Discord orb is really good, but that's really the only reason he's up here. If Zenyatta's Discord got nerfed, I'd put him lower, but solely for the fact that, you know, his Discord is really strong, that combined with Sombra's hack, very nice. But, you know, if his Discord was gone, I put him in indifferent. Brig, Brig's a hard one, because right now, I haven't really played with her new ultimate too much. Not enough to understand, to completely be 100% confident in it, but from what I've experienced so far, Brig and Sombra, really good. Really good. Depends on what you run with the Brig. Brig on her own as a duo, I can't really say much about, though, because it really depends on how your comp works entirely. Brig isn't a solo pick, really. You don't just go, oh, we have a Sombra, let's go Brig. There's no logic behind that. But if you're a Sombra, you go, oh, we should get a Kiriko. And then with a Kiriko, you can go Brig in that way. But Brig alone, standalone, isn't really a good reason to duo. But with a Brig, Sombra is really good. Your entire team can collectively go. Next, Reinhardt. Reinhardt is just really good with Brawl, and Reinhardt can give you a lot of time to build up your EMP without the enemy team building up their ultimates. And that way, the Reinhardt gives you space. And no other tank really does that in the same way, because Reinhardt can just, like, buy time. And no other hero can do that. And that's why Reinhardt's really good. For entirely other reasons than any other character in the top row. Up next, Mercy. Mercy depends on the other DPS, but generally speaking, I'd say scary but doable. The reason I wasn't much of a problem for the last, like, 2 seasons was because Mercy got a rework, and she went balls to the walls nutty. She was phenomenal. She was S tier herself, and that was really good for her. But overall, I wouldn't duo with a Mercy. I would not do that. That's always risky business. Mercy shows you where the Sombra is with her beam. It doesn't actually show the Sombra herself, but the beam to the Sombra is shown. So even your invisibility, it's a net negative. And then the healing is too consistent. There's no burst day healing. The damage is neat, but is way better on any other hero in the game than Sombra. You know, minus Tracer, I guess. And overall, if you play a Mercy, you're playing very stationary. You just kind of pick a spot out and you stay there. You know, if you have an Ashe, Mercy blocks the Ashe, you take a high ground, you stay high ground. You have a Pharah, Pharah goes in the air, Mercy goes in the air, they stay in the air. And that's pretty cool. Up next, Sim. If it's a cough map, I'd say Scrumptious gameplay, because you can really tempo that. You can really snowball. But in general, Sim is countered pretty easily, so I'd say the lower end of indifferent. Depends on the map, but overall, a Sim is a little bit scary to play with. It really depends on the tank, I'd say, and how fast the enemy team plays. It's more dependent on the enemy team where she goes, but she could be all the way up, or she could be in the middle. So actually, I think I'll just put it over here. I think on the higher end of either unstoppable or terrible. I think that's what I want to do. Bastion, really good combo. But Bastion himself is easily countered, same logic, but if Bastion was decent, I'd put him in the middle part of Opportunity Maker. Because Bastion has a very good neutral. He burns shields like no other. If you actually, no, I'd put him with Reinhardt. For the same, like, the type of comp with Rein and Bastion would be S tier. So I'm gonna put him at the lower part over here. Yeah, no, if you're only playing Bastion and Sombra with, like, a ball or something, that wouldn't really work out. But if you have a Bastion with a Reinhardt, that would be S-class. It's happened. If you hack a D.Va, Bastion can burn through that easily. You completely over-amplify the Bastion. That would be amazing. Doom can be really good, but it really depends on the player that you're playing with. Usually, Doomfist engages way faster than a Sombra, but less often than a Sombra. So it's not, you can't really predict when a Doomfist is going to go into to combo the dive in comp. In pro play, you can go 3-2-1 easily, but in competitive Overwatch, it's really hard to actually combo it. So in pro play, I put him over here, but otherwise I put him over here. Now we get to the fun heroes. Soldier is my second favorite to duo with as a Sombra. Soldier has his own heal station, is kind of independent, has a lot of damage, and his ultimate is very good for comboing. So overall, Soldier is it just complements Sombra very nicely. Sombra and Soldier, very good combo. Very good combo. Next, Cassidy, kind of the same as Soldier, but then more easily diveable, so I put him as Opportunity Maker. Yeah, no, same logic, but less so, I'd say. Yeah, but if he gets dove, you know, you have to peel for him. You have to go out of your way to compensate for the lack of things that Cassidy has. D.va also kind of depends on the players, but like Sombra's really good with comboing with tanks. So it's no surprise that the tanks are all up here except for Roadhog and Queen. So I put D.va over around the same as Winston, I'd say. And Reaper, scary but doable. Depends. Reapers in high rank are often very much just flanker heavy and very much on their own, which means you're leaving your own team behind. The playstyle for Sombra and Reaper honestly is very similar when you think about it. And we're gonna use the Sombra icon for Lifeweaver. I haven't played much of Lifeweaver here. I haven't played much of Lifeweaver, but from what I have played, Lifeweaver completely removes like 70% of her risk when you want to EMP. In terms of potential, Lifeweaver might honestly be over here in S tier, but given the fact that there's more teammates in the team, I'm gonna put Lifeweaver as like right next to Cassidy. Lifeweaver himself isn't that great, so like Lifeweaver can easily get dove, and if you're playing Sombra, I don't know yet. I don't really have that much experience, so I'm gonna think it's Opportunity Maker here. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. This would be my tier list for what you would play with a Sombra. Sombra replacing Lifeweaver here. Any questions? Let's answer some questions before the YouTube comments get after me. How do you feel about the new Brig? Honestly, I thought it'd be worse. What is your ideal team draft built around Sombra? Ideally, Ball, Sombra, Echo, with a Lucio and maybe Kiriko. That'd be my best favorite comp. That'd be my number one. High tempo, non-stop, keep going. Sombra Mega Dive? Yes, that would be my most fun. If I'm doing with a buddy and I want to combo with Sombra and any other role, what would you recommend excluding the other 3 people on the team? Depends on the team comp, because if you double down on Brawl with a Reinhardt, for example, it could work. But if you're playing like a full dive comp with a, you know, Sombra with an Echo and a Lucio and a Kiriko, and your other teammate goes Junkerqueen, you can kiss that goodbye. That's an L. That's an L right there. You know, if you build your team comp around the Junkerqueen, so if a Junkerqueen with a Sombra and a Soldier with a Kiriko and a Lucio, with a Soldier instead of an Echo, that could still work. You can make that work easily. Genji Sombra's a good comp. Genji Sombra's a terrible comp. It's terrible. They both have the same weaknesses. Genji requires the other DPS to compensate for the lack of shield break and peel. Genji doesn't do shield break. Genji doesn't have any pressure. Genji needs to build up his ultimate just like Sombra. Sombra has the potential to do something, but overall, she is a little bit more skewed to the ultimate. And with that, you know, you double down on the negatives, and that means the positives, they happen less often. Way more of a majority of the time is Genji Sombra a bad idea. If you're playing with the god Genji gamer himself, well, maybe you can make it work, right? But that is beyond 1%. It's indifferent? I don't think so at all. The weaknesses of a Genji are the exact same weaknesses as a Sombra, and they don't complement each other, because if you're doubling down on a Genji when he's ulting, and you're ulting, and they're nanoblading, that's a net negative for your ult economy. Like, Genji's upsides become a downside for Sombra. You're holding each other back that way. And if you don't nano Genji, you EMP Blade, also not that great of an idea, because Genji will die. It does not work, unfortunately. With Tracer at least still has more neutral game. And that would be my tier list for all the heroes to play with a Sombra. Bye, YouTube. Thank you. Bye, YouTube. Pay attention, guys. Very important stuff. Bye, YouTube. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now.